They crash into different weddings to score multiple hot women. What could possibly go wrong? Hello, and welcome back to the story. Today, we will be making a recap on a 2005 movie titled The Wedding Crashers. Warning, there will be some spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk and enjoy. The story begins with two best friends named John and Jeremy, who have a crazy hobby of crashing in weddings, so they can nail hot chicks. The two's hobby of crashing weddings comes with a set of sacred rules handed to them by Jeremy's legendary mentor. One day, Jeremy informs John that wedding season is coming up and both of them are very excited as they have already 17 weddings lined up to crash into. John and Jeremy arrive at the first wedding on their list. It is a Jewish one, so they put on kippah. During the mass, John sees his target, and he quickly puts on eyedroppers, and the lady sees him crying. Jeremy also has locked his target on a blonde lady sitting in front. The wedding is done, and everybody cheers. At the after-party, everybody loves John and Jeremy as they dance, drink and chat with everyone. They even share their message to the wedded couple. A while later, John is dancing with the lady, and she was touched when she saw him crying at the wedding, so she hugs him. Jeremy, who is dancing with the blonde lady, lies that he is a professional bullfighter. She is impressed and kisses him. We then see that the two attending different weddings on their list. They use different names and scripts. The guests are not 100% sure who they are, but they just let them because they are fun. The two are having the time of their lives. Using their sad backstories, they never fail to score different chicks on each of these weddings. One morning, Jeremy gives John a newspaper, the wedding of the Secretary of Treasury's daughter, and says it will be the greatest crash of all time. John tries to decline because he is tired, but Jeremy quotes one of their sacred rules. John finally gives in and says he wants it to be well planned. Jeremy is ecstatic and says they will start to plan their scheme. At the wedding, the men make final review of their scheme. They have articles and information on Secretary Cleary and his family members. Before getting in, John's eyes get caught on one of the daughters of the secretary named Claire. He tells Jeremy that their backstory is that they are brothers and venture capitalists from New Hampshire. The wedding starts, and Jeremy sees his target, a ginger-haired girl named Gloria, who is also one of the bride's sisters. After the wedding, John approaches Claire, who is organizing the gifts. He points at each gift box and guesses what's inside. He introduces himself to Claire, and she hands him a gift. John says it has massage oils and tantra book which came from a wacky aunt. Claire checks it, and it actually is from one of their aunts. She's impressed with his gift, and John says his power only works on useless consumer products. They both laugh but then get interrupted by Claire's mom. Jeremy is in his usual stint of entertaining kids to impress Gloria. A spoiled kid orders him to make a bicycle. He tries to decline, but then the spoiled kid yells at him, and he makes him a bicycle. Gloria approaches him and says he is impressive. Jeremy then invites her to dance. John, on the other hand, is dancing with a little girl to impress Claire. A while later, he approaches Secretary Cleary and introduces himself. He says he loved the secretary's position paper on economic expansion, and he read it while sailing his boat to Bermuda. The secretary is impressed that John read his position paper, and that he is also a sailor. The secretary invites him on the deck to light up some cigars. Jeremy is dancing with Gloria, and he uses his usual sad backstory that he went into war and lost a lot of good men. They later sit at the lakeside where Jeremy continues to share his made-up story. Gloria is deeply touched, so she kisses and jumps at Jeremy. Claire interrupts his father and John, who are having a fun conversation, and the secretary has to leave them both. Claire is impressed that John seems to be a big hit at the wedding, and he says it is easy because everybody is nice. Claire says she is going to give a toast and has a prepared note for her speech. She thinks her speech is a good one and people will love it because it is funny. John reads it and says people won't find it funny and advises her to just say something from her heart. She does not believe him and says she will stick to her script. At the toast, after the best man gives a heartwarming speech, it is now Claire's turn. She sticks to her script and people are just silent and do not react. John watches in cringe as the guests don't find her speech funny. Claire looks at John and he signals her to speak from her heart. Claire agrees and quotes what John has told her before about true love, and says she is happy that her sister finally found it. Her sister cries and hugs her. The people applaud her beautiful speech. After making love, Gloria hugs Jeremy and says she's happy that she lost her V-card on a beach. Jeremy is shocked and terrified that she was actually a virgin. Gloria says they are gonna be happy together and tells him I love you. A while later, Claire approaches John embarrassed and says he totally saved her. Before he can answer, a man approaches Claire and kisses her. She introduces Zach, her boyfriend, to John. They then leave John, who is disappointed. Jeremy arrives and asks that they should leave immediately because the chick he scored was virgin and is excessively clingy. John is hesitant to leave. Gloria comes in and invites them to their house with her family. Jeremy tries to decline, but John says they are going. Gloria is ecstatic and asks her father to bring the guys. Her father is hesitant at first, but then Gloria cries like a spoiled kid, so he finally agrees. They arrive at the house and John says Jeremy is looking a little weird. Jeremy says Gloria just bonked him for 45 minutes and has no more bodily fluids left in him. Zach interrupts the two and invites them for a little game of football. At the yard, Zach is warming up so hard for the game. The game started, and when Jeremy gets the ball, Zach charges at him, and he falls hard to the ground. John, on the other hand, is able to clinch Claire. Zach mocks Jeremy, who is struggling to breathe. They stop the game and Gloria brings Jeremy upstairs to fix him. At the bathroom, Gloria tends to Jeremy's wound and then later teases him. She sits in his lap and gets wild. Jeremy tries to stop Gloria's advances, saying he is tired and just got injured. She gets mad and slaps his wound. He apologizes and Gloria calms down and tells him not to ever leave her. In the living room, Zach is impressing the family with his stories of how he saved sea otters from an oil spill. Jeremy tells John to use the eye drop already. John is hesitant at first, saying he can defeat Zach fairly, but when he looks at Zach again, he reconsiders the eye drops. It's dinner time and the priest asks them to close their eyes to bless the food. That is when John gets the opportunity to put the eye drops on Zach's glass. Zach says that he and Claire are going to be married pretty soon. Secretary Cleary says that when they get married, it will unite two of the great American families. John puts out a joke and only Claire laughs hard at it. Zach asks John how the two of them are connected to the family, and he says they are Uncle Ned's kids. Everybody gets confused about who Ned is, but then they just carry on with it. After dinner, John sees Claire alone by the stairs outside. He sits beside her, and they have a heartfelt conversation. Secretary Cleary comes out and interrupts them, saying Zach is pretty sick, so Claire has to leave John. Claire comes into the room and sees Zach hugging the toilet bowl and asks if he is okay. He gets mad at her for asking the obvious. We now see the real character of Zach when he is alone with Claire. He is a hot-headed boyfriend who likes to boss her around. A while later, Jeremy's sleep gets interrupted when he feels something pressed on his face. It is Gloria, who sits fully naked on top of him. He struggles, but his hands and legs are tied, so he cannot do anything. She tapes his mouth and says she will make his fantasies come true. John finds it hard to sleep, so he gets up and tries to sneak to Claire's room. When he reaches the door, he changes his mind and goes back to his room. Claire is also having a hard time sleeping, so she sneaks to John's room. She leans on his door and then goes back to her room. Zach is still sick in his room. Next morning, Jeremy asks John that they leave now, because he can no longer stand Gloria's harassment. John says the eye drop plan failed and nothing happened with him and Claire. Jeremy says he has fallen in love with her, and John denies it. Jeremy then says he is leaving even without him. John then reminds him of rule number 1, never leave a fellow crasher behind. Jeremy has no choice but to stay and give John a little bit more time to make his move with Claire. Zach calls one of his friends and we learn that Zach cheated with Claire during the bachelor party where he nailed a couple of ladies. He then asks his friend about a private detective because he wants Jeremy and John to be investigated. A while later, John goes on a bike ride with Claire. Zach asks the butler where Claire is, and he says she is riding bike to the beach with John. Zach gets mad and turns off his TV. At the beach, the two are having fun while playing a hand slap game. John asks her about Zach, and she says they have been talking a lot about marriage lately, and she is scared. John says, whatever happens, he hopes that Claire realizes that she deserves somebody great. She stares at him and kisses him. At lunch, Zach announces that he and Claire are getting married and everybody cheers except for John. Jeremy tells him to accept it, but John says he can't, and he confesses that he is in love with Claire. Jeremy says he is crazy, and John says he will tell Claire everything. Jeremy goes to Gloria and tells her that their relationship is not going further. Gloria says she loves him, and Jeremy says that it must just be an infatuation because she lost her V-card to him. Claire then confesses that she is not a virgin and she just said that because she thought that's what guys wanted to hear. Jeremy is astounded. He later drinks with the priest and confesses about Gloria. He says that he does not like her when he thought she was a virgin, but now that he knows she is not and that she is actually wild, she now turns him on. He thanks the priest for listening to him and kisses him. John approaches Claire and tells her she can't marry Zach. She asks why and he confesses that he has fallen for her. Zach receives a call from his friend and he is shocked at what he learns. Back outside, John asks Claire if she feels the same way too. She says maybe, but she does not know anything about him. John is about to tell her the truth when Zach interrupts them. He approaches John and punches him. Zach tells everyone the truth about John and Jeremy, that they crash weddings so they can nail the girls. Claire asks John if it is true, and he says yes. Everyone is disappointed, except for Gloria, who is so in love with Jeremy. The secretary asks them to pack up their things and leave. Before going in, Jeremy mutters, "I want you," and Gloria replies with "I love you." Everyone gets back inside and the two later leaves. One day, Jeremy is romantically talking on the phone, when John interrupts him saying he knows a way to get Claire. Jeremy tells him to give up already because it has been months and Claire hasn't returned any of his calls nor responded to his letters. John ignores it and says they will be crashing to Claire's engagement party tonight. Jeremy says he could not come, and John asks what is wrong with him. He has always been missing for the past couple months and this time he badly needs him. Jeremy says there is no way they can get into the party because the security knows them. John says he has already prepared for it, they are going to act as waiters. He reminds Jeremy of the time and then leaves. That night, John arrives and knocks at the back door kitchen. The butler opens and asks where is Jeremy. John says he must be late again, and then he comes in. At the dinner table, Secretary Claire notices her daughter to be looking sad, so he invites her to dance. John peeks through the door and sees Claire and her father dancing. Zach sees him, and he, with his men, throw John outside. Zach beats him so hard and leaves him in pain. John is so mad because he could not find Jeremy anywhere. When he arrives at his house, John sees Jeremy making out with Gloria. He gets mad and leaves. Jeremy runs after him and John tells him that he got beaten up by Zach while he is just having a good time with Gloria. Jeremy says he loves Gloria, and John could not believe it and calls him a traitor. Jeremy tries to call John multiple times, but he never answers. He spends his whole day being sad and drinking while watching TV. Claire and Zach, on the other hand, are busy with their marriage preparations, but Claire is visibly not feeling it. She tries to have fun with Zach, but he is always annoyed by her. When Jeremy visits John, he is not around. John is back at crashing weddings, but this time, he is making a lot of mess. He makes sad speeches, steals the bouquet, and crashes at the playing band. One night, Jeremy proposes to Gloria, and she is very ecstatic and says yes. While browsing for flowers with his daughter, Secretary Cleary notices Claire to be sad and crying. He tells her that there is no way she can tell the future, all she can do is listen to her heart and she will be just fine. One morning, Jeremy comes to John's apartment and greets him happy birthday. He apologizes for everything that happened and says he misses him. John says the same, and he is glad that Jeremy found the right one for him. Jeremy hugs him and John feels a bit better. But when Jeremy says he is getting married, John tells him to get out. Jeremy says they have been friends for 16 years and he wants John to be his best man. John is mad and tells him to leave. John later goes to the house of Jeremy's mentor, who still lives with his mother at the age of 40. Chaz comes down wearing a robe. John introduces himself as a friend of Jeremy, and Chaz hugs him. He asks how Jeremy is doing and John says he is getting married. Chaz laughs so hard and calls Jeremy an idiot and a loser. A lady comes down and Chaz makes out with her before she leaves. John is amazed at how good their mentor is, and Chaz is proud because he is living the dream. John asks where he met the girl and he says at the cemetery her boyfriend just died. John is speechless. Chaz says funerals are way better than weddings. He invites him to his next funeral, but John says he is not ready for it. However, we see John at a funeral with a sad lady clinging to his arm. He sees Chaz crying with a lady comforting him. He then winks at John, and he watches in disgust. When he looks at the widow who is crying, John has a realization. Later at Jeremy and Gloria's wedding, John arrives. He tries to sneak silently, but the door shuts loudly, and everyone looks at him. The security tries to force him out, but Jeremy yells and says he is the best man. John approaches Jeremy and says sorry he is late. While the ceremony is going on, John whispers to Claire and tells her she is pretty, and that he can't stop thinking about her. Claire walks out. John stops her and says he never gets the chance to explain. He confesses that he has been crashing weddings for a very long time just to meet a lot of girls. Claire says it is pathetic, and John agrees, but says because of it, he was able to meet her. John says he made up his name and business, but his feelings for her were all true. He says he made a realization at a funeral earlier where he saw a widow crying because she lost the love of her life. And this time, John does not want to lose the love of his life. Zach interrupts and orders Claire to go back to the altar. Claire says she can't marry him, and Zach tells the secretary to advise her daughter. Secretary Cleary says it is her daughter's decision, and he stands by it. Zach yells at Claire and orders her to go back to the altar. John comments that it is a nice preview of what their marriage is gonna look like. Zach gets angry and charges at John, but Jeremy punches him down before he can go near. Gloria kisses Jeremy, and John approaches Claire and kisses her. The four of them later ride the bridal car and drive away. We can see Chaz crying while two ladies are clinging to his arms. While in the car, Gloria says she is starving. Jeremy says there is a wedding at 3 p.m. and John says they have good food there, but then regrets it when he sees Claire staring at him. Claire then suggests a good backstory, and they get excited. We now have 4 wedding crashers on their way to the next wedding. Did you like our movie recap? Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. To be updated for new movie recaps, hit the notification bell.